Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Hannah Ajokaye, and I am the Knight Fellow for Nigeria. We're happy to have you here. It's the first ICFJ Knight Fellowship webinar in collaboration with the International Center for Investigative Reporting. And as you know, today the theme is gaining trust for the media in the fake news era. We've seen, the landscape of misinformation in the country, and with Nigeria being one of the top 5 biggest democracies in the world, we know tackling misinformation is a duty, it's a responsibility. But again, we are concerned with the rise of social media and the way people share information online. We are concerned with the media industry gaining credibility so that people can trust them as a source of verifiable information, especially now that a lot of people get their information online. So for today, we have a lineup of panelists. We are so incredibly lucky to have professionals, professional journalists, public servants who are doing a lot of great things. We are so incredibly lucky to have them in our midst. So today we have the Honorable Minister, Mr. Sunday Dare, the Honorable Minister for Youth and Sport. It's a delight to have you here, sir. We also have Mr. Dayo Ayeitan, who is the Executive Director and the founder of the ICIR, that's the International Center for Investigative Journalism. And we also have Fisaya Freyombo, he's a frontline investigative journalist. And again, we have Ejiro Umukoro, who is a broadcaster and a media manager. So we'll be listening to the opening remarks by Mr. Dayo.
So my task is simple. I just want to make a brief comment about why it is important for the media to be engaged in this battle to combat misinformation. The world has been fighting for the past few months 2 pandemics, the coronavirus pandemic and the huge fake news culture that came with it. While the pandemic can be devastating or has been devastating in terms of body count, people falling ill and all that, and the general dislocation that it has caused in the world. The other pandemic, which is misinformation, I think personally can be equally devastating because fake news, as we have seen, can disrupt lives, can disrupt society, can impact negatively on even our democracy. So for me, fake news is a threat and a present existential danger to democracy as we know it now and to the media. We have seen what has happened, for example, with Russian influence in the American election. Not just, the attacks, but, the manipulation of information to influence the election. And the reason why fake news and misinformation is particularly dangerous to our society is because for many around the world, information is power. Information available to the ordinary man on the street is probably that singular thing that enables the man or the woman to make choices about leadership, about governance, about participation in governance. And so when we manipulate or weaponize information to the extent that it distorts and it tricks people into making wrong choices, then I find misinformation very, very dangerous. I believe that the media particularly has a role to play in fighting misinformation. But rather than what some governments in the world have adopted, including Nigeria, I do not think that we should look at combating or fighting misinformation through legislation or clamping down on social media and all that. But the thing to do is for the media, government agencies and mouthpieces to educate. There's a whole lot of reorientation that needs to go on. There's a whole lot of information training that we need to do. This is our job. And that's why, the ICIR is involved in this fight through the fact check operation we set up, FactCheckHub. I welcome you all to this discussion, and I wish every one of us great deliberation. Thank you very much.
I'm indeed delighted to be here this morning. I'm very happy to be part of this webinar for several reasons. First, as an alumnus of the International Center for Journalists, ICFJ, being a former International Journalism Fellow. And secondly, because I fully appreciate the urgency of confronting the menace of fake news. Ayo has tried to pry open some of the debates and conversations around the containment of fake news, whether we should do it through legislation, through persuasion, or any other means possible. This urgency to confront the menace of fake news was emphasized by Pope Francis in his message for the World Communications Day, 24th January 2018. His Holiness said, and I quote, "The best antidote to falsehoods are not strategies, but people. People who are not greedy, but ready to listen. People who make the effort to engage in sincere dialogue so that the truth can emerge. People who are attracted by goodness and take responsibility for how they use language. If responsibility is the answer to the spread of fake news, then a weighty responsibility rests on the shoulders of those whose job is to provide information, namely journalists, the protector and the provider of the news. In today's world, there is, in every sense, not just a job, it is a mission. Feeding frenzies that we have and mad rush for a scoop, they must remember that the heart of information is not the speed with which it is reported or its audience impact, but persons are the ones affected. Informing others comes with a responsibility. It also means being in touch with their lives. That is why ensuring the accuracy of sources and protecting communication are real means of promoting goodness, generating trust, and opening the way to communion and peace. The theme of this webinar today, gaining trust for the media in the fake news era, is therefore timely because technology and connectivity have improved even further since Pope Francis gave his charge 2 years ago. Persons and factories that churn out fake news have become more adept and versatile in fabricating their products such that fake news has become more problematic to deal with. Indeed, it has become some kind of cancer. Multimedia, videos, audios, and images are now manipulated with such dexterity that it is tougher to distinguish the real from the fake. Those behind the phenomenon have gone as far as being able to create social media profiles and websites that we easily pass as real if strict fact-checking is not applied or implemented. Therefore, the role of the journalist as a gatekeeper has therefore become more relevant in exploring the political, technological, and societal context of misinformation in Nigeria and indeed globally. And I must pause here to speak to the fact that my academic research work at Oxford University, tried to look at the impact of the news media, the social media, but also looking at how that has come to either strengthen or weaken the gatekeeping role of the legacy media. That research concluded that increasingly the legacy media or traditional media must find ways to embrace the social media, but in such a way that it does not let go the very basic ethics and principles of gatekeeping. What we have seen now, the traditional media has indeed embraced. Most of them are online. They have footprints online, digital footprints. But then, I did say then that we live in a world where everyone is a journalist. And that is where the rubber meets the road. With 50 naira, 200 naira, $2, anyone around the world can buy data. You can open a Facebook account. You can open an Instagram account. And you can decide to post your pictures real time, write your stories real time, publish your stories real time. And therein lies the gateway to fake news. The media indeed has the responsibility of coming to the rescue. They must ensure that the public gets good, useful, and truthful information, particularly now that people can act on information they get online and on social media such that they could get hurt, killed, or basically lose their investment in businesses. Anecdotal evidence show that Nigerian youth spend at least 6 hours online daily, which implies they are exposed to fake news for the most part. They are online. This is why the Ministry of Youth and Sport Development, we have continued to work towards ensuring that the opportunities offered by these technological improvements are put to good use. Since the COVID-19 pandemic made virtual meetings preferable, the social media and the internet generally have been deployed for educating and training the youth, which includes modules that teach responsible use of social media. This is the good use of social media and the internet. The youth and people in general should add the additional layer of using these platforms for the spread of truthful information and fighting harmful misinformation and disinformation. So is there a silver bullet to fake news? Yes and no. And the jury is still out. But let me speak to the fact that we can set up processes deliberately on the part of the traditional legacy media. The old-time rules apply. When in doubt, don't print. When in doubt, don't publish. It is all better to be late and correct and factual than to go first and be incorrect. Those rules of the legacy media have not changed. We must have a return to that. While the currency of news is important, that currency can only be justly exercised in the face of the factuality of that report that goes out. It is comforting to learn that ICFJ is already championing solutions in form of fact-checking through a partnership with 4 media houses, namely FactCheck, the cable newspapers, Dubawa, that is, take a look at it now, sir, under the Premium Times Investigative Journalism Center, PTIJC, and of course, the ICIR. I urge the team to look to work with the Ministry of Information and Culture, and indeed my ministry, Youth Development. And indeed, the Ministry of Information and Culture has acknowledged that fake news has consequences on all facets of life. And in 2019, it launched a campaign against fake news, which of course has been effective. By pulling effort and our resources together, as well as the additional advantage of the government buying, and also the buying of the legacy media, the campaign against fake news will be scaled up to make greater impact, even if incremental. The effort to legislate against fake news, in as much as it looks really, really, really fanciful, its implementation will bring about some level of censorship. And in our job, in our profession, censorship is not a word we want to hear. But should government criminalize fake news? I think that some form of legislation might be necessary, but such legislation must be a collaborative legislation. But I think, back to my question, is there a silver bullet? There's no silver bullet. The closest to that silver bullet is all of us, and it's in our fingers. Don't share, don't send if you are not sure of the information.
Please make welcome Ejiro. And Ejiro today will be talking to us about information overload and the digital ecosystem, how the media can regain trust in a post-truth era.
Many persons may not even know that when they hear the word post-truth, it's actually referring to a situation where objective facts no longer shape public opinion. In other words, when we talk about post-truth, we're saying that people actually appeal to their emotion or their personal belief as the yardstick, the standard for which they actually make decisions. So that back in the day when we used to have very formidable institutions, the education institution, the religious institution, we had the philosophical institutions as well, who were great speakers who could come out and say, this is our observation, they talk about this, and they present it. So we used to have authority figure back then. People used to say, oh, there is one truth, there's one standard, there is one quality of how standard in terms of information should be. But we now realize that what has now happened is that these formerly major institutional truth teller and publicists are no longer being seen as the standard for the measurement of what truth should be. Instead, what we are now beginning to see is that what has come to be seen as the popular conversation. So when something is popular, people tend to feel that it is true, but that's not the case, because popular truth is really a weak form of knowledge, which is more like opinion based on trust in those who are supposed to know this information that has been spread around and that became viral. And the closer you look, post-truth is actually a breakdown of social trust. And it encompasses, the fact that even the legacy media, online media, every kind of media is now being put into question. And the problem with post-truth and post-reality is the fact that people who believe in it's an era where everybody begins to feel I can easily cherry pick the data that comes to me and then make my conclusions. So the conclusion is not based on, oh, this work has been done by a specialist, put together by the specialist. And so we're working with raw, incontrovertible data. So therefore, let us use this data to have the conversation. Instead, what we're seeing is people are saying, this is how I feel towards this data that I have seen. And because I feel like this towards this data, it means how I feel is how I'm going to make the judgment call on that data. And that's why you see fake news is so pervasive. The hoaxes are everywhere. It's just because of that feeling, I can resonate with this information. When people resonate with information like that, you know that it's coming from somewhere. And where is it coming from? Often it is coming from what I call the biases. And all of us have the cognitive biases. From the attribution bias to confirmation bias to the halo effect and the horn effect, the self-serving bias, the status quo bias, all of these biases are the things that we use that feeds the post-truth realities that people are talking about. And then you see, for example, individuals who depend too heavily on the initial piece of information that has been offered to them. Now, once they see information, they just concluded, oh, it came from this person I consider an authority figure. So therefore, it means it's going to be true. And this we see even in the media space, where we see some notable names in journalism. When they speak, what happens? You see all the media journalists lampoon on the information by these so-called authority journalists. Do you get what I mean? And then we now share this information by this person. We forget that these are just opinion pieces of this person. And when journalists now begins to write this information, because there's this a bit of cognitive bias or attribution bias, the confirmation bias regarding this person, what happens is they now carry this person's information and present it as news. Media organizations should learn to collaborate more. We have so much to do like a hive mind. There are many ways of areas we can collaborate in terms of even content curation, content generation, and even multiplying it itself. And I think the way we're going now, we should be thinking of becoming a niche organization. Media should become a niche thing where you are, is it core investigative journalism? Is it core lifestyle you want to do and then get down to it? Is it core developmental story? Is it core solution journalism? All of these are the things we should be doing. So the fact that many journalists are unwilling to also change their habits in terms of learning, we have a problem there. We need to begin to change that. Many of us do not even explore the digital tools that we have. TinEye, reverse Google image research, and stuff like that. Many of us are not even aware of these tools. And when we're exposed to these tools, some of us don't use them. You're going to ask yourself, anything I post, remember, it forms its own aggregation. This is a digital ecosystem. And in the digital ecosystem, what will happen is information aggregation happens. And when they happen, it becomes a conversation in the civic space. And the civic space is where people make decisions. It's where people have interconnected networks. And this is how they share things. So when you're posting next time on your social media handle, just remember that single line, those words you use, how you coin them, the pictures you use, they are all part of whether you misinform, disinform, or propagate falsehood. Let us take the self-check. Let us have the discipline to self-regulate. And I think we can go places.
Fake news and the influence industry, responsibilities of social media influencers. That's what I'm supposed to talk about. Sometimes people share fake news, not because they want to. It just happens that they want to help. Sometimes people just want to help and they don't verify and they share content online. Since I'm speaking, more about influencers than journalists, I thought to share why influencers have to be extremely careful. And because there are quite a number of influencers who are not journalists, they may not even be aware that a simple Google reverse image search exposes fake pictures. And it's the same with videos. And I think that nobody, should get into a point where they have shared photos or videos that turned out false, because those ones are the easiest to verify. To round off, I always ask, before you tweet a story, before you post a story, ask why you are sending it out. Why are you tweeting? I'm always worried when people share photos of casualties of violence. In southern Kaduna, 28 people have been killed, and then you are sharing photos. Oftentimes, these are photos that were not verified. These are photos that had appeared in the past before. And it can be really dangerous because it's so easy for people to latch onto that anger that they feel. And that anger can be justified if the event has indeed happened. If the event did happen, the anger is justified, but not when it gets to the point where we are now intensifying that anger with photos that are fake. Who is the source of this thing? How credible is that source? Even when you're trying to tweet as a result of what a newspaper has published, ask yourself, who are the editors of this paper? Who are the promoters of this paper? What are their interests? And finally, if I don't tweet, okay, the first was if I tweet, what will happen? And then if I don't tweet, what will happen if I'm not sure that this thing is original or not, and I hold it back? If the world is not going to crumble, better not to.
I sincerely want to thank you on behalf of the ICIR, on behalf of the ICFJ, on behalf of all the panelists, and on behalf of all of us who have been part of this event. I'd like to say a warm, heartfelt thank you to you for your contribution. I hope that the conversation doesn't end here. I know that newspaper reports will come out. I'm sure that we will come up with a position paper, something like a communique, which will be invaluable to researchers, to students of journalism, to practicing journalists, and so on. Thank you very much, everyone.